Hey there, it's Nisha here. So fair warning before I even get started, this is not my normal kind of post. Normally what I post about would be systems and processes and tips and tricks and hacks to make your business run more efficiently. But tonight I want to help you make your mind run more efficiently so that you can do the things that you have planned for your life. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nisha Zachary. I'm the owner of the System Shop and the founder of Permission to Leap. Now, Permission to Leap was a series of interviews that I did asking women how they gave themselves permission to live out the calling that they felt was placed on their lives. The reason I did this series was because I wanted to know exactly what it takes to give yourself permission without asking the rest of the world, is this okay? And so from that, I have been working on a book about living a vision-fueled life. And in order to live a vision-fueled life, you have to give yourself permission. But while I've been struggling with this book, I've been keeping it nice and tidy and comfortable and very surface. And God is beginning to dig up some roots. And he's making me very uncomfortable. And I asked him, how am I supposed to get through this? I am an introvert to the extreme sometimes. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do this, in all honesty. Because what I'm being called to do is expose a lot of me and expose myself in a way that I never have before. And so I was led to the book of Samuel when David has come back from war and he's reached Ziklag, which is the camp in which he's staying. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Bible stories, Ziklag was basically set up as, a place for David to get away from his enemies. It was essentially his comfort zone. And so he goes off to war, which is his job, and he comes back and his comfort zone is now on fire. Everything that he loves has been taken. Everyone that he loves has been taken. Everything that he possessed is on fire. And it's like, okay, this place is obviously no longer comfortable. What do I do now? The first thing that I noticed about this story is that David starts to cry. Now here's a mighty man of God who has been called a friend of God, and he is crying. Like, okay, that's a sense of relief because I've been doing a lot of that, and it's like, okay, crying is not a bad thing. Sometimes we get so shamed by having emotions or being too emotional that we tend to suck it all back. I was guilty for the longest time of just sucking all of my feelings back, swallowing them down and presenting the perfect face to the world, this nice, strong face that everybody is okay with being able to handle. Because there are a lot of people in the world that cannot handle your emotions. There are going to be a lot of people in the world that can't handle your calling. That's okay. It's really okay. There are going to be times when you can't handle your calling. That's okay too. God's got you regardless. But in the midst of all of this, he showed me some other things, and that's what I want to share with you today. What do you do when your comfort zone is no longer comfortable? After you've finished crying, after you've gotten over the anger, what is it that you do? After you've finished fighting with God and you're ready to step up, how do you do that? So here are some things that I have gleaned from this whole story. So it's going to take persistence. That's the first thing. This whole process of building a vision-fueled life is going to take persistence. Now, the basis of persistence is that your surroundings don't change your desire. Whatever is going on around you doesn't change the fact that you were called to do something great. It doesn't change the fact that you have a mission that you started and that you know you want to finish. Your surroundings don't change that. Just because things aren't going your way doesn't mean you won't get where you're supposed to be. T.D. Jakes said, just because the thing that you're doing right now is not the thing that you were called to do, doesn't mean anything. This is the thing that could lead to the thing that is what you are called to do. So just remember that. Don't let your surroundings change your desire. That's point one. So you have to continue without change. So we got that. You have to remember that this is not the time to quit. Right when you're facing your hardest moments, just remember that it's a test. It's not the time to quit. It's not the time to give up. If you're going to quit every time something goes wrong, you're going to keep coming back to that one thing that's going wrong. Because God has a purpose for your life, and you have to go through certain, we'll call them tests, trials. You have to meet certain requirements to be who you need to be in order to do what you're called to do. So don't quit. Keep going. It's all about persistence. Again, keep going. So one of the things that I asked was, why not just give up? It would be so much easier if I could just give up and go back to doing, go back and get a job, go back and live the life that I was living before. I had money, I had, friends, and I had prestige, and I had the things that I wanted for my life. Now here I am as an entrepreneur, and I built up my business and things were going great. And now God is calling me to do something else. Oh my goodness. It's very daunting to realize that you have what you thought you wanted and realize that that's not what you were called to have. It's not what you were called to do. Yes, it's a part of your path to get you where you're supposed to go, but you have to ask yourself, how much am I willing to release in order to get what's mine? There's an old saying that says you can't receive with a closed hand. So as long as my hands are gripping tightly around the life that I have, I can't receive the life that I'm destined for. So this is something that you need to think about as your comfort zone is starting to squeeze you. If your comfort zone is squeezing you, it's time to break out of it. Keep going, don't give up, and just remember you were called for more. So how do you do that, right? That's the big question of the day. How do we do this? So the first thing you're going to do is stop listening to other people. You can't be persuaded by other people. There are going to be people in your life, whether it's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your best friend, your husband, your children, who are going to say, why not just give up? Job's wife said, why not just curse God and die? And he could have easily done that. He had lost everything. He was covered in boils. I know I'm switching up stories, but anyway, he's got all of this bad stuff going on. He could just curse God and die, and it would have all ended. But had he done that, he would not have received the twofold blessing that he ended up with at the end. He ended up with double of everything that he lost in the beginning. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to keep going. Yes, there will be trials and tribulations. Yes, there will be hard times. It's not all peaches and cream. So just keep going. Keep going. You know the vision that God gave you. And as long as you have that vision in front of you, it will sustain you. God will sustain you. Don't be confused by what's going on. Don't let anything tempt you to think that maybe what you thought you saw wasn't what you really saw, and maybe you weren't called to do what you thought you were called to do. Don't go there. Don't go there. See, the thing about God is he has a way of allowing things to happen to form you into who he wants you to be. There are certain experiences that make you who you are. There are certain childhood experiences that you've gone through. There are certain adult experiences. And all of these things work together to form you into the person that you were called to be. There are certain things you have to do in order to be who you want to be, to have what you want to have. And you just need to remember, when things get kind of confusing, keep yourself focused. Keep your eye on the vision that God has given you. The other thing was, ask God for permission. Yes, I talk about giving yourself permission, but when you depend on a higher power, it's a lot easier to say, okay, I'm not going to live with regrets. I'm not going to hold myself back. I'm going to step into it, step out on faith, and trust that what I saw is mine to have. That's number 3. And you have to be willing to let go of some people. Now, this is something that I'm really struggling with, because there are a lot of people that I have become really attached to, who are slowly being shown to me as people who are not going to be with me much longer. And that doesn't mean they're leaving the earth. It just means they're leaving my circle. There are people that I've known for years who have already left my circle. And they were some hard losses, but they also came with some really good lessons. They've toughened me up. They've made my business what it is right now, because I went through the early struggles in my business with people that I knew, trusted, loved, hung out with. These were my friends, and I learned my lessons. Sometimes people are there for a reason, a season. We've heard all of this, but you have to know when to let go. Don't try to hold on to people that are supposed to be leaving your space. There's a lot of energy that you use up trying to preserve relationships that are already dead. If you're holding on to somebody when they've already been released from your life, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, you're doing them a disservice. You're holding them back from what they were made to do, and you're blocking your own blessings. So be willing to part with the people who are not meant for the journey that you're meant to take. And the last thing is, be not weary in well-doing, for you shall reap in due season if you faint not. That means, yes, you are going to get tired, but don't get so tired that your mind becomes clouded, that you give up on what it is that God has called you to do. It goes back to, the point about, not being confused. Sometimes when you allow yourself to get burnt out on things that aren't yours, aren't for you, you can become really confused. And it's really easy to become so exhausted, so tired, so frustrated that you just say, I'm done. And when you give up too soon, there is something that just happens in the world. One of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And the main character decides he wants to commit suicide because life is so hard and things are not going right. And, basically his Ziklag is burning. And so he gives it all up. And he says, okay, I'm going to commit suicide. Well, the angel that he's working with takes him back through his life and shows him what the world would be like if he wasn't there. And it starts back when he's a child, and it goes all the way through, through his adulthood. And there are so many things that changed because he wasn't ever born. You were created to serve a purpose, not just for your life, but to serve a purpose in the people's lives that you touch. And some people you don't even realize that you're touching, but you are. They're watching you. You are inspiring people. You are changing people's lives, sometimes whether you know it or not. And one of the things that, happened to Mr. Bailey is that he realized, my life isn't so bad. It's actually a wonderful life. Yes, things are hard. Yes, times, can get kind of rough, but I'm not going to give up. And when he decided not to give up, he was rallied around. And when he passed that test, that's when things began to shift and change, and miracles began to happen. And I know that miracles are like, one of those things that people don't really talk about so much, but God is yet the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if he could do miracles thousands of years ago. Why can't he do miracles now? And I can guarantee you, just from what I've experienced in the last few days, miracles are like all over the place. You just have to open up your eyes and see them. So you have to just keep going. If Ziklag is burning, stop and ask God, do we pursue this? Should I continue on? Should I go after what's mine? And listen to the answer. Because if that vision is yours and you don't go after it, it could not only hurt you, it could hurt some other people as well. There are people that are waiting on you to do exactly what you were called to do. There are people that are waiting for you to start your podcast, to write the book, to create the course, to, volunteer at the homeless shelter. There are people that are waiting for you to go across the world and find them, whether it's virtually or in person. There are babies that are waiting to be adopted because you're hesitating on what God told you to do. If there is something that you have been called to do, be led by your vision, not stopped by fear. So that is how you work your comfort zone. And I want to say that again, be led by your vision, not stopped by fear. And that is what's going to make the difference in, what you do when your comfort zone is no longer comfortable. All right, thank you, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.